Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today I'd like to talk about graphing lines in Cartesian plane. I hope this is all review for you because you've studied this in algebra and probably in your prior pre-algebra classes. Now, you are probably most familiar with this form of a line. Y is equal to mx plus b. This is the slope-intercept form. Now, the reason this is called a slope-intercept form is because this equation of the line gives you the slope of the line, right? And it also gives you the y-intercept. This is the y-intercept of the line. Okay. Now, so this is therefore called the slope-intercept form. So this is called the slope-intercept form. Okay. So if you're given a line, for example, like this, equation of a line, y is equals to 2/3 x plus 1, and this is in the slope-intercept form. So the equation, this line has a slope of 2/3 and it has a y-intercept of 1. All right. So this is a slope-intercept form, and I hope you are familiar with this form of a line. There are two other forms that I would like to review for you, and it's important that you know all three forms and that you're comfortable with all three forms. And the first form is this one, the ax plus by is equal to c, and this is called the standard form of the line. Okay, this is the standard form of the line. And finally, the third form is this one, y minus y1 is equal to the slope times the x minus x1. And this one is called the the point slope form. So this is the point and a point slope form. So these are the three forms. In other words, equation of a line can be written in these three forms, and that is, if you have this particular line example here, y equals 2/3 x plus 1, this is the line written in this form, but you can manipulate this equation so that it looks like this, and you can manipulate the equation that it looks like this. It's like writing your name in different ways, like first name, middle initial and last name, or last name comma middle initial first name, or last name comma first name middle initial, like that. So the same line can be written in different ways. You can manipulate the equation of the same line so you can have it in different forms. But you have to know these three forms, and that is, you have to be able to recognize that when you see something like 2x plus 3y equals to 5, this is an equation of a line. This is an equation of a line that's written in the standard form, with a is 2, b is 3, and c is 5. So that's ax plus by is equal to c. So you have to recognize that. Just like that, you also have to recognize this, y minus 2 equals 2/3 times x minus 1. This is also a line that is given here in the point slope form. In the point slope form, you're given a point, that's this point, x1, y1. You're given a point, x1, y1, and you're given the slope of the line. So you identify the point and the line from this particular equation. For example, in this case, the point that's given is x1 and y1. The point that's given here is, again, 1 and 2, not -1, -2, because there's a negative sign over here. Okay, so there's it's y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. So the point that's given here is 1 and 2, and the slope here is, of course, 2/3. So 2/3, and this you can distribute, for example, and take the y to 2 to the other side to make this into this particular form. So you can manipulate this equation and bring it into the y-intercept form or the standard form. But these are the three methods, three ways of writing the equation of a line. So, and this is super important. So this is the standard form of writing a line. This is the more popular, the slope-intercept form, because it gives you the slope, and the y-intercept form. And this is the very useful point slope form. So the first thing to do is to memorize them. You know, oftentimes when I teach the class, I just tell the students to write this. Ax plus by is equal to c, y is equal to mx plus b, and y minus y1 equals the slope times the quantity x minus x1, and tell them that this is the standard form and this is the slope intercept form. So this is the slope intercept form because it gives the slope and the y-intercept, and this is the point shoot, or that's affectionately known as point shoot or point slope form, standard form, slope intercept form. And I tell my students, just write this thing, whatever I've written over here, just write that like 5 times until you feel comfortable with the way these equations look. So you might want to do that if you're not comfortable with these already, but make sure you know them. So if somebody would ask you, okay, what are the 3 common ways you can write lines, you should be able to say these from your memory without hesitation. So the 3 ways of writing lines are the standard form and the y-intercept form and the point slope form. Now, if you're given a line that's in these forms, there are different strategies of graphing them. And in other words, the way you graph the standard forms is if a line is given like this: 2x plus 3y is equal to 5, for example. How do you graph this line? What's the method of graphing this line? Where compared to if you're given a line that's in the slope intercept form, you could say y is equal to 2/3 x plus 1. You probably can graph this reasonably easily. So today I want to review graphing these lines. Primarily I want to review the slope intercept form of the line, and then inshallah next time we should elaborate and cover the other 2 forms. Okay, so let's start with something that you're familiar with. Probably this is the slope intercept form. So this is y equals mx plus b. So you have to understand when you see something like this, that this is the slope and that is the y-intercept. So if you were to graph this, so obviously the first thing you do is, first of all, you should label your axes because that's mustahab. It's kind of like, good mathematical manner. So that's 2. I go by 2s just to make sure the graph is not too cluttered. So I mark 1 here and 2, and that's 3, and that's 4, and that's -1 and -2. So this is just good manners to put so people know what you're doing. So the approach to this is, the first thing that you do is you take the y-intercept and you just plot it there in the graph. So here's 1, so that's the y-intercept, so there it is, that's 1 point. You only need 2 points to graph a line, because 2 points, if you remember from a geometry lesson from before, 2 points determine a unique line. There's only one line that goes to any particular 2 points. So if you have 2 points, you got your line. Alright, so that's the y-intercept. If you want to label this, if you're a super nerd, so you can say x is 0 and y is 1. And that's your point. That's the y-intercept. That's the ordered pair that belongs to the y-intercept. Got it. And the slope is 2/3. So the slope here is 2/3. So that means the change in y is 2, and the change in x is 3. It's a positive slope. It's going to go like this. So this line is going to go in that direction, right? So that's easy enough. So the slope is 2/3, and change in y is 2 for every 2 that you go up. And change in x is 3. You have to go 3 this way. So up 2 and over 3. So change in y is 2 and change in x is 3. And there you have your second point. And you can just plot that, put that over there. And then you can just connect the points. And here it is. I connect that point over there like this. And I can put that over here. I can connect that like this over here. Alright, there we go. And that's our line. I must also say it's kind of like good mathematical manners. So once you draw a line, to put or label the line like this, to tell that this is the line 2/3 x plus 1 on the graph, because a graph can have multiple lines or multiple functions graphs, so you need to know which one is which. So this line belongs to that particular graph. For example, let's just put another line in the same graph. So I'll give you another line. So y is equal to -2 x minus 1. Here we go. Now this is again y equals mx plus b. The y-intercept is -1, right? So mx plus b like this, right? So y-intercept is -1. So here it is. That's our y-intercept. We got that. And the slope is -2. So the slope is -2, or you can think of it at like -2/1, right? So because it's changing y with changing x. Why is no changing x? Yes, there is. There's 2/1. There's always a 1 there, right? So this, the slope is -2/1. So okay, so that means you go down 2 because it's negative. Negative slopes are like this, right? Negative lines, lines with negative slope go like that. So down 2, that's 1 and 2, and over 1 like this. Okay, So down 2 and over 1 like this, and then all you have to do is just connect the line. Connect the 2 points. You only need 2 points. If you wanted more points, you could get more points. Let's say if you wanted more points. Okay, well, I want more points. So you go down 2 over here and over 1 like that. So like this way. This way, this way, this way, this way. So this way you're going to go left here, up 2, and if you wanted to have more points. So let's see, and that's another point over here. So then you can connect the line to your heart's content. So you can put this in a different color. So here it is, and you just kind of it's kind of going off the table here. I just kind of erase that tiny bit, make it look neater. All right, here we go. So the arrows indicating that the line goes forever. See, now you have 2 lines. Which one is which? Well, this line is y. It's like a name tag. Y equals 2x minus 1 to make sure that that you're telling the reader that this is, if you didn't have color pencil, you know what I'm saying? So this is y equals negative 2x minus 1. All right, so we have 2 lines that we've drawn over here, and in the Cartesian plane. These are both given in the slope intercept form. So the graphing a line in the slope intercept form is easy peasy. I hope you agree with that. Before I finish here, I wanted to talk about 2 things, and that is parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Now, parallel lines are parallel if they have what? Parallel lines, L-I-N-E-S. The parallel lines are parallel because their slopes are the same. Okay, so parallel lines have the same slope, so they have the same slope. Okay, that you have to understand. So if I give you a line, so let's just highlight this to make sure you understand, you remember this. If I give you another set of lines, for example, if I give you this line, y is equal to 2/3 x, okay, and plus 3. Okay, now if you look at this particular line over here and compare it to this one, these 2 lines have the same slope, don't they? The slope here is 2/3 and the slope here is 2/3, right? But they have different y-intercepts. So these are parallel lines. If you were to graph this particular line in the same Cartesian plane, the y-intercept is 3, so go 1, 2, here's the y-intercept. The slope is the same, that's up 2 and over 1, 2, 3 over here like this, and that's the slope. And if you were to graph that again, here is that line like this. Here's another, I'm just picking another point, and here's the other end of the line. If I did this semi-correctly, here we go. Now you can see these lines are parallel to each other, aren't they? So this line is parallel to this line, and the reason they are is because they have the same slope. So parallel lines have the same slope, and except their y-intercept would be different. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is, okay, parallel lines have the same slope. You got that. That's not very difficult to understand, correct? I gave you an example of lines that were parallel. How about perpendicular lines? So that's very important because in geometry we like to talk about perpendicular stuff, okay? So perpendicular lines, okay, their slope is very interesting because if you remember, do you remember with perpendicular lines how the slopes are related to each other? Well, perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocal. So, well, first of all, we have to understand what that fancy word means. So, negative reciprocal. Okay, so their slopes are negative reciprocal, and I have to make sure I spell this right. It's actually R-O-C-A-L. Okay, just check that, make sure I give you the right spelling, so you make sure. So, negative reciprocal. What does that mean? Well, negative reciprocal means, first of all, reciprocal is like upside down. So, 2/3. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. So that's reciprocal. Like flip it, right? So if you flip 2/3, it's becomes, so if you flip 2/3, it's 3/2. That's what the reciprocal means. So if you have like 1/3, you flip it, you get 3/1, or just 3, right? So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So first of all, you have to understand what reciprocal means. So let's do some reciprocals. Reciprocal of 2. Well, if you flip this, there's 2/1. That's 1/2. So, and reciprocal of 3/5. Okay, if you flip this, you get 5/3. right? Okay, how about this one? What's the reciprocal of -3? Well, if you flip -3, there's a 1 here. Remember, 3, there's always a 1 underneath there, because any number can be divided by 1. So the reciprocal of -3 is -1/3. You flip the fraction, still negative. Okay, so that's what the reciprocal means. The negative reciprocal means you flip it first and then you change the sign of that thing. So the negative reciprocal is first you flip it and then you change the sign. So okay, what's the negative reciprocal of 2? Okay, well, first you flip the 2, that's 1, and it becomes 1/2, and the negative reciprocal, you change the sign. All right, how about the reciprocal of a negative reciprocal of 3/5? Well, you flip it as 5/3, that's the reciprocal, and negative, it means you change the sign. All right, so what's the negative reciprocal of -3? Well, first you flip it, and when you flip it, it becomes -1/3, but then you negate this, you change the sign, and it becomes +1/3. So the negative reciprocal of -3 is +1/3. Negative reciprocal means you change the sign after you flip it. Okay, so the next negative reciprocal. Okay, let's do one last one. What's the negative reciprocal of 2/7? Well, you first flip it, and it becomes 7/2, and then you change the sign, so the negative becomes +7/2. Okay, so negative becomes positive, positive becomes negative. So that's what negative reciprocal means. All right, so perpendicular lines, their slope, how are they related? They're related by negative reciprocal. So let me give you another example over here of a perpendicular line. So this was parallel line. Remember, this line was parallel to this line. So allow me to give you a perpendicular line. So if you wanted to make a perpendicular line to this line, you have to change the slope. You have to make it negative reciprocal. So it's going to be -3/2. That's the negative reciprocal of 2/3 is -3/2x. And if you change you can change the y-intercept. Okay, so okay, let's just change the let's keep the y-intercept as 1. Okay, now let's plot this line. Okay, let's plot this particular line. So this so y-intercept is 1. That's over here, and the slope is -3/2. That's 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2 right here. There we go. Then we got the negative reciprocal of that, and then we just connect these two lines, and then we have a line that's perpendicular to the original one, like this. I have to make sure I actually make it look. What am I doing over there? Okay, so all right, so I'm sorry, so let me kind of erase this over here. I'm trying to do this neatly, paying the price for it. All right, so here it is. I'm trying to draw this one, negative reciprocal, like this. All right, so -3/2. Oh, down 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, I got that right. And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I got this. Okay, so here we go. It's harder than it looks, like, especially when you have to do it and perform it, so to speak. Oh, here we go. All right, here is this line. Now these two lines are perpendicular. See, like this one and this one are perpendicular. All right, and if you wanted to label this, you can label it. Now you have 3 lines, right? So you better label them to let people know which line is which. So that's -3/2x plus 1. All right, so there we have it. So we learned today how to graph lines in the Cartesian plane. Specifically, we learned how to graph the slope-intercept form. Y is equal to mx plus b form, and that's the slope. And we learned the parallel lines, they have the same slope, whereas perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. So you change the you flip the fraction, and you flip the number and you take the negative of it, and that's how the slope of perpendicular lines are. Inshallah, next time we shall talk about the other 2 forms of lines, the standard form and the point slope form, to complete this aspect of our review of lines. Until then, as-salatu was-salam ala rasulillah walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum.